What up, what up, what up, y'all? Welcome back to another episode of the Heart of a Lion podcast. I am your host, Jay, and you have just entered into the Lion's Den. Now, if this is your first time tuning in, then welcome. Thank you for tuning in. If you are trying to find out where you can find me on social media or where you can find this podcast, you can find this podcast on Spotify, on Apple Podcasts, on Amazon, iHeartRadio, a few other places, and now also on YouTube. I know before I told people you can just type in and search Jay Highsmith on YouTube, which is very true, but now you can also type in the Heart of a Lion podcast on YouTube as well, and you can find me there too. As well as I also created a new Instagram specifically for the podcast. So if you want to, you can still follow me at my personal Instagram, which is Mr. Highsmith 86. However, you can now also follow the Instagram for the podcast, which is HoAL podcast. Again, that's at HoAL podcast, which essentially is Heart of a Lion podcast. So today's episode is about music. But before I talk about my journey of music, let me ask you the question. As a Christian, do you believe or do you feel that it's okay to listen to secular music? Yes or no? Now, I'll wait until so later in the episode to give you my thoughts on what I believe, but I would definitely love to hear you all's thoughts. So whether you respond via comment on YouTube, whether you respond to a question on Spotify, or whether you send me a message on Instagram, however you want to do it, let me hear your thoughts to that question. But okay, let's get into it. The impact of music. Now, for me, music has had an impact on me since a very young age. You know, music for me in the 90s, I grew up in old soul because of what my parents listened to. They listened to a lot of Babyface and TLC and Michael Jackson and a variety of other people. But mostly what they listened to was R&B. You know, Babyface, TLC were like the more recent ones, but they listened to a more old school R&B in comparison to 90s R&B. And it wasn't, the crazy bump and grind stuff. But then again, at that age, I probably shouldn't have been listening to, what they would listen to anyway. But again, that was my childhood. As a kid myself, I loved Babyface. I loved TLC. It was probably extreme, but I don't, now I think about this, there was something wrong with me doing this, but I used to have a red light and used to always just sing at the top of my lungs, TLC Red Light Special. There's definitely something very wrong with that, but red was also my favorite color too, so that's why I justified having a red light. Now, this was the core music for me. This is what we mostly listen to. They listen to R&B, so I listen to R&B. But as I got older, I started listening to rap. I still remember listening and rapping to Mo Money, Mo Problems by Biggie every time it came on the radio. And I don't think that was a song that made me a huge rap fan, but I remember loving that song as a kid. I remember having Mace's, I think it wasn't his first album, but I had one of his hit singles like on a cassette tape. And a variety of different people, I had their singles on a cassette tape. But what I came to learn as I was getting older was I was out of the loop because I didn't know that there was a difference between edited and non-edited versions. I just listened to what was on the radio and I just listened to what my parents bought me. But it wasn't really until I got to middle school that I found out that there was a difference. Because my friends would be rapping lyrics like, that's not what it says. And they're like, that is what it says. Like, what are you talking about? Because back in the day, unlike today, but back in the day, there was an edited version for all rap music. So you had your radio, your music video version, and then you had the album version. Whereas now they just bleep out every other word or every word, and it's just mostly instrumental. But anyway, once I found that out, I begged my mom to let me get the non-edited versions of the CDs so that I wouldn't be teased and out of the loop. Now, mind you, she probably thought she shouldn't have, but she let me do it. And the first explicit CD that I remember owning was The Art of War by Bone Thugs and Harmony. And man, I wore that CD out. I wore that CD out. I love that CD, and I love Bone Thugs and Harmony. And it had a major impact on me going forward, and I became a huge CD collector after that. You know, if I liked a single from an artist, then I just went ahead and bought the CD. There was no way to know back then if an album was going to be good or not, so you just had to buy and listen or borrow from somebody else. And 9 times out of 10, I bought the CD just because, you know, I like the single, so the album must be good, right? But, you know, going into the early 2000s, my late teens, I leaned heavy, and I do mean heavy, towards Cash Money. You know, I was a big down south music fan in general, but a huge Cash Money fan. I mean, I listened to Lil Wayne was my favorite, but I listened to Lil Wayne, BG, Turk, the Hot Boys collectively, the Big Timers, anything that was Cash Money that had a Cash Money imprint on it. That's what I was listening to. I had all their CDs. Now, when we talk about favorite artists, again, Lil Wayne was one of my favorite artists, and this is before he became, you know, popular in the 2000s. Because when I was listening to him, people were like, "Why are you listening to that? That's trash." Da, 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 da. Like, whatever. This was like before the Carter and the Carter 2. I was listening to The Block Is Hot and 500 Degrees and all those albums. That's how big of a fan I was. But I was a big fan of Lil Wayne. T.I. was one of my favorites. Project Pat was another favorite, and Pastor Troy. Like, those are the 4 people who I listened to the most. Was never really a big fan of East or West Coast music. I love some of the stuff, but it wasn't really for me. And then by the end of high school, I was still listening to mostly down south music, but then I started shifting towards mostly crunk music, which if you know anything about crunk music, you know it's probably not a good thing. Because I mean, Knuck If You Buck, Head Buster, Never Ever, Never Scared, anything by Lil Jon, like, that's what I listened to. Like, that was the soundtrack of my life. That's what I like. Typically, I was listening to something like that, you know, and what I didn't realize was the impact that music was having on me. Because when I was angry, you know, that was the music that I had feeding my brain. If there was something about to happen, it was about to be a fight, like, that was the music I was feeding my brain. If somebody pissed me off for whatever reason, like, that was the music I started feeding my brain. Lil Wayne had a song specifically, and like, the whole chorus, and I'm not going to say the actual words, but the whole chorus said, F you, MFU. And like, I used to listen to this whenever somebody made me mad. And all that did was just make me even more mad. You know, I used to listen to T.I., T.I.'s What Up, What's Happening. I used to listen to his Hurt. You know, again, listening to Knuck If You Buck. You know, all these songs fueled me and just made me more angry when I was already mad. And it wasn't good, but that's how I was back then. You know, I didn't realize the impact that it had on me. You know, sometimes I listen to them just to prepare my mind for anything. So if I'm chilling, but again, I'm walking home, you know, and it's late, or, you know, if I was walking home because it was late, you know, or just walking home in general, sometimes I would listen to that music and it would put me in a mindset that if anybody messes with me, I'm already ready. So if anybody try to jump out on me, if anything happened, if anything go crazy, I'm mentally already ready for a situation, which again, you know, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. There was one time where I was mad at something stupid, something very stupid, but I was mad. Got in the car, and I'm listening to T.I., What Up, What's Happening? And the lyrics go, you know, what up, what's happening? All you haters can get at me, whatever. And I remember I was driving down the road and I hit a U-turn to pull into the gas station. And when I hit the U-turn, I realized that I had accidentally cut somebody off because I made the U-turn, but the person had the right of way to make a right. And he blew his horn. And what I didn't realize is that he followed me into the gas station. And as he follows me into the gas station, the music transitions, right? So what was happening goes off, but now it's hurt. And what is this? What do the lyrics say? It says, "You finna get hurt, murk, put him in the dirt, or you better catch me first." So this is my mindset now. Finna get hurt, murk, put him in the dirt, or you better catch me first. Like, that's how I'm feeling now. This guy followed me into the gas station, pulled in front of my car, and started yelling at me and cussing me out. And I'm paying him no mind, but this music is also fueling my brain. And I'm tripping because it's like, as much as I'm not paying him mind, if anything happens, I'm already ready for the situation. And I'm parked. My car is parked. I get out of the car and I go up to the pump, and something was going on with the pump where I couldn't use my car, so I had to go to the teller. And this guy is still cussing me out the whole time. So I walk in front of my car to go towards, like, I'm going to the gas station or to the attendant. And the whole again, this guy is sitting here, and I guess he thought I was coming towards him, and he sped off. And rather than me thinking like, that's a situation that I avoided, no, all it did was fuel my anger more, because I'm pointing out how this music, fueled my brain, and how this music just had me on a different level when I didn't really need to be, and at this point, I had hundreds of CDs that I had purchased, hundreds of mixed CDs that I had made, because I made mixed CDs just for fun. Like, I made mixed CDs for me. I made them for other people. I made mixed CDs for parties. I made, CDs and playlists for weddings and things like that. Like, I loved music that much. But again, a lot of what I'm feeding isn't good for me. So all that being said, one day there was a shift. There was a shift. A few years after getting saved, I told you all that I got saved at 18, but then I had a coming to Jesus moment a few years later. And like, after this coming to Jesus moment, that's when things really started to shift for me. That's when there started to be a transition. That's when I started to see things differently. And I started getting more of an interest into listening to gospel music. And one day I felt the Lord speaking to me and telling me to get rid of all my secular music. Like, not some, not most, but all. And I felt the unction so strong that I didn't tell anybody anything. I went and got a trash bag. I packed up all my CDs, and I do mean all. And I think it may have even been 2 trash bags full. I don't remember, but I went and put it out, for the trash pickup. So now at this point, I'm starting over, because I don't think at that point I had any gospel CDs. If I had any gospel CDs, it may have been like 1 or 2, maybe 3 at the most. But again, we're talking about hundreds of CDs that I had thrown away, that I had gotten rid of. And it's funny because my brother, who is a Christian now, used to be mad at me and tell me that I should have given him the CDs. But the way I felt was like, if I feel the need to get rid of them, then I don't want anybody else to have them. Trash. It's just going into the trash. So what now? What do I listen to? I went cold turkey for a while, and all I had was just these few gospel CDs. So I just put those gospel CDs on repeat. I love the gospel music, but again, like, I was used to rap. But then God began to reveal to me Christian hip hop and what I call alternative gospel. I guess now you would call it contemporary gospel. Back then I called it alternative gospel. And I discovered people like The Truth, Lecrae, JR, who now goes by Courtney Orlando, I think, Flame, and now it's like I had a new escape, because I had these guys who were rapping or who were singing about Jesus, so it made me feel like, I can still listen to rap, but also talk about Jesus at the same time, or listen to rap but not get angry, when I listen to music. And the mindset that I had while listening to music now had completely shifted. And I used to I began to feel so much better while listening to Christian music and Christian hip hop than I ever did with secular music. Because secular music fed the worst parts of me, specifically lust and anger, but gospel music fed my spirit. I could relate to it because they spoke to how I was feeling, but offered hope in Jesus. I could relate to it because not everything, but some of their experiences and things that they went through, the things that they talked about, like I was either living it or I could relate to it because I had been through it. And I was grateful for it because now I had something that I could relate to. I began to get heavy into Christian hip hop, and it's still my primary source for music. I still prefer to listen to Christian hip hop over everything. But however, in recent years, I've also gotten heavier into worship music. More often than not, even though Christian hip hop is my preferred genre of music, I listen to worship more than anything, just because for me, worship sets the tone. I'll listen to worship music. Sometimes I listen to worship music to sleep. I listen to it on the way to work, listen to it when I'm just, I'm trying to quiet myself, trying to quiet my spirit, quiet my thoughts, quiet my mind. But again, like this is the shift of where I am now compared to where I was 20 years ago, and all of that being said, it doesn't mean that I've never listened to secular music. It doesn't mean that I've never listened to secular music again, but for a long time I didn't. And then I had relapses. I went cold turkey with the CDs, and I still to this day I've never purchased another secular CD, but at the same time I've still heard other secular albums, if that makes sense. The last CD I remember purchasing was Carter 2. Probably purchased some other ones, but I got rid of everything. But then I started having relapses, so I've heard the Carter 3, I've heard the Carter 4, I've heard the Carter 5, and I still had, I would still make, mix CDs for people. When I would make mix CDs for people, sometimes I would download the secular stuff just to make CDs for people. And then I would get back to a point where I was like, no, I can't do this. I have to stop. Cut it out again, cut it out. Like, don't listen to this, because again, like, what is it doing for me? It wasn't good for me, and then if I would get angry, sometimes I would revert back to that type of music. And it's just like, what is this really doing for me, or what is really going on that's making me feel like I need to listen to this? I got to a point where I had to realize that worship, that when I feel angry, that I need to listen to worship music to calm my spirit, or I just need to pray. Just pray, because when you fuel anger every time, you're going to get a result that you don't need. You're going to get a result that isn't beneficial for you. But when you cool it, it's more beneficial to you mentally, spiritually, emotionally, And again, I would have these relapses, but the frequency in which I would listen to it was fewer and far between. But still, I listened to it often enough where I realized, like, yo, I need to chill out. I need to just cut this back. I need to cut this off completely from my life. Like, it's not doing anything good for me, And now, I would say, well, before that, let me say this. So I think it may have been early last year, I think, where I went out of my way to listen to some old songs that I used to listen to. And it wasn't in a sense of like me being angry. It was just like, oh, I haven't heard this in a long time. Let me go ahead and download this song, or let me just add this to play next or play later just so I can hear the song again. And they were all secular songs. And I just remember as I started listening to these songs, like I immediately got a headache. And that joint, like, it was a pounding headache. And I was like, yo, I can't do this. I can't do this anymore. I can't do this anymore. So I cut it off, and I put on worship music, but then I had to also pray that thing away because I invited it in by playing music that wasn't good for my spirit. And because it wasn't good for my spirit and because I invited it in, it's like now I have to do the work to get this thing away from me, to get this thing off of me, now I would say I listen to 98% Christian music and maybe 2% secular music. But the secular music that I listen to now, it's like if I'm at a wedding, if I'm at a cookout or something like that, and it's a line dance playing, I enjoy a good line dance. So that's the secular music that I'm listening to. There's certain R&B songs that I'll sing to my wife. I'm not talking about the crazy stuff. I'm not listening to Nobody's Pretty Ricky. I'm not listening to Usher and that stuff. But it's some songs that I think like, okay, this song is a clean song, or this song means something to me when I sing it to her, or when I'm playing it with her when we're going on a date night or whatever. That it's like, okay, like this is cool. This is clean. There's some Will Smith songs that I like. And a lot of people used to always say that Will Smith was corny back in the day. I actually enjoyed Will Smith growing up, but it is what it is. Will Smith had this song called Afro Angel, which I've always loved just because of the storytelling in that song. But again, it's few songs like that, few things like that I still listen to. But 99% of what I listen to is Christian music, whether it's contemporary Christian, whether it's gospel, whether it's worship, praise, whether it's worship, whether it's hip hop, whatever. Like most of what I listen to is Christian music in some form or fashion. Or not some form or fashion, but in a variety of different genres of Christian music. Like that's what I listen to. So when I talk about should you, or is it okay to listen to secular music? Do you believe it's okay to listen to secular music? I personally would say no, because I've seen how it's affected me mentally. I've seen how it's affected me spiritually. I've seen how it's affected other people. Now that being said, I've been in the car with people, me riding in the car, not driving, but me riding in the car with people who, went to go sing praise and worship at a church, and on their way to go sing praise and worship, they're listening to R&B in the car. I've been to Christian parties where they play secular music. I've been around these different venues, and in some instances, yes, it is hard to get away from secular music. But at the same time, as a Christian, you don't have to go out of your way to invite it in. Now, if I'm at the store and it's playing, I can't necessarily escape that. I can put it in my AirPods and escape it, but I can't prevent what they're playing at the store from being played. But on the flip end, if I'm at home, I have a choice of what music is playing in my home. I have a choice of what music is playing in my car. I have a choice of what music I play at work. I have a choice of what I allow to come into my ears in those spaces. And I also just look at it like this. Like, what is it that you're feeding? What is it that you're feeding your spirit? I told y'all that I used to listen to a lot of Cash Money. I told you all some of the lyrics that I listened to. One of the songs that I used to listen to was by BG from Cash Money. And he had this song where the hook went, I've been popping ecstasy, drinking Hennessy with a naked chick next to me. Mind you, I have never popped no pills. I have never had Hennessy. I've never had that stuff, but this is the stuff that I was inviting into my spirit. The FUs, the Nuck If You Buck, and all that stuff. Like, this is the type of stuff I was inviting into my spirit, and it wasn't healthy for me. It wasn't good. It bred a lot of negative thoughts. It bred a lot of angry thoughts, depressive thoughts. It wasn't stuff, that I needed. I mean, Sean Kingston, I think that's his name, had a song years ago, talking about how it was a very catchy song, but the song said, you had me suicidal. And it was a popular song, but people were singing it. And it's like, why do I invite that into my spirit? Why do I choose to sing this song? Why do I choose to sing these lyrics? Christians today still talk about listening to Drake and J. Cole and Jay-Z and this person and that person. I'm like, but what do they talk about? Like, I personally don't know, because I don't listen to that music anymore. But what does it do for your spirit? And I mean, the same thing goes for what you watch as well, but we're specifically talking about music here. What does it do for your spirit that you feel like it doesn't hinder you spiritually. Again, this is not me trying to judge or condemn anybody, but this is me just getting you to try to see it from a different perspective. Because most secular music does not edify you spiritually. Most secular music doesn't do anything for you in a way that promotes godliness. If you think about, most secular R&B is talking about sex. It's talking about lust. It's depressing, a variety of different things, but none of it leads you to God. We talk about secular rap. A lot of it is shoot 'em up, bang, bang, killing, drugs, women, things that when we look at the kingdom of God, like, why am I listening to this if it doesn't help promote godly marriages? Why am I doing this if it doesn't help promote godly friendships and relationships? Why am I doing this if it doesn't lead me back to the King? So that's where I'm at with it. That's how I feel. Again, I'm not condemning anybody. I'm not, saying that you're making horrible choices or horrible decisions. I'm saying for me, at one point, I was making horrible choices and horrible decisions with what I was listening to, when I was listening to it, and why I was listening to it. For me, I choose to listen to mostly, if not all, Christian music. Rarely do I ever go out of my way to listen to the other music that I was telling you all about. I have to do what's best for me spiritually, and sometimes even if it's something that's by a Christian artist, I have to go back and, I can't even listen to this anymore. There's an artist that I am a big fan of, and he used to have this song called Misbehave. Now, when I was single, I was like, I really relate to this song because it was talking about, being a single man and being in a position with a young lady and like, what do I do when I'm in this situation? Like, God, send help for me in this situation. God, get me out of this situation. Like, let me be like Joseph in this situation. Let me run, Joseph, run. Like, that's essentially what they were saying in the song. And I listened to it a few years ago. I was like, why am I listening to this? Like, this is not my story anymore. I am married. So I say all that to say that sometimes, even with some Christian music, you need to screen what you're listening to. Like, you can't listen to everything in every season, and you can't listen. Some stuff you just shouldn't listen to at all, because some stuff just, it sounds good. It sounds catchy, but it ain't glorifying God, or it ain't biblical. And I'm not saying, that all Christian songs are bad. I'm not saying that every Christian song that isn't biblical is bad, but you have to be mindful of what you listen to. You have to really be mindful of what you listen to, and seek God if you're not sure. Like, just seek God. Like, God, is this something I should be listening to? Trust what He says to you, because again, at the end of the day, what you feed your spirit matters. Is this edifying God? Does this bring me to a closer relationship with God? Is this healthy for my spirit? Is it healthy for my mind? Is it healthy for my emotions? Like, these are the things that we have to think about. Again, I'm not condemning anybody. I'm not, judging anybody in this situation. I just want you to think, just be more mindful of what you listen to, and how it could potentially be affecting you. So that's it. That's all for today. I appreciate you all for tuning in to another episode of the Heart of the Lion podcast. Until next time, peace out.